It's good to see everybody today. I'm Darren Newman, and welcome to the Darren Newman Dialogues. I have a great friend of mine, Nick Burge, with me. Good to see you, Nick. We were talking right before we started taping, and all that you're doing now. I'm just going to count. I'm just going to say a couple of things about Nick. Great friend, uh, great colleague. Now works for a university as a recruiter, but a great philosopher. And I'm welcoming you today. It's good to see you, my friend.
Hey,
It's
it's good to see you too.
nice to be here today. Um, I wanted to start out, and as we've been thinking about the dialogues, of course, they're called the dialogues because of the reason of conversation. And of course, everybody knows our mission is to bring about like this idea of, I call it philosophical spirituality, though I'm not sure that that is the most adequate name, but it's the name I can think of. Like I love, as we've talked about often, the transformative nature of when we're thinking very deeply about life. And of course, everybody's, you know, they as we've known that philosophy is the love of wisdom, and that's the way we've been taking it. But it's much more than that to me, and all of us as we've come on to the dialogues. So I wanted you to come on with me today and talk about the ways that you have seen that in your own life and how that has transformed the way that you live and even what you're doing now. Um, and we started out when we've been asking this question, and I want to talk about that with you today and see what your thoughts are. And I want to dialogue with you on what you see as the most, I call it the most moving thought, because it's something that I think, moves us into action or moves us into our life, and what you think that is. And then we'll go to the question of why, and then we'll offer like one thought that people can live by, but that's yet a while in the future here. So let me ask that question of you. What do you think is the most moving insight that you've learned to life?
I've thought on it a little bit since we've messaged a bit about
Hmm.
doing the podcast. So it's kind of been an interesting past couple of years since graduating. So I've kind of had to reevaluate a few things because
Hmm.
obviously COVID happening and my background being in education, those two things didn't exactly pair well together.
Hmm.
So I think what's kind of moved me in the past couple of years, at least building up to now, has been like, what is it that you feel satisfied with in the moments? What is it that can keep you being like secure and happy where you're at, like in life at
Hmm.
the moment?
Hmm.
What are
Hmm.
the things that you can enjoy, like, and what can you take with you whenever, say, your plans don't work out right? Say for me, having a lot of goals for the future and like a very clear cut idea about what I want to do. That was me. That was like my deep thought for like all
Hmm.
throughout college, all throughout high school.
Hmm. Hmm.
And past 2 years happens, that gets completely thrown away. So I've had to evaluate kind of some of the things that I really wanted to do and ask myself, am I satisfied now, not knowing that either I may not be able to or I have to choose not to do that thing? And what is it that makes me maintain that satisfaction? What
Hmm.
lets me
Hmm.
be okay with that? Because it's one thing to say, well, I'll just get over something, but like what actually motivates you to like keep enjoying where you're at and not resent that?
Not resent the not being able to do what you thought you would be doing.
Right. Not look down on yourself for not being able to have the plans that you wanted because whose plans work out.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, don't they? I mean, we that's really interesting that you're saying that, because I know you were you're in education, as a recruiter, as a university recruiter. You majored in education, didn't you, when you
Yeah.
were with me in the university and we were learning philosophy together? And you're still in that, but it's changed up significantly because you were in elementary ed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in the teaching of children, and how does a person then switch off to being still in education, but administering it in a whole different way than what you ever imagined?
Right. For me, that happens because you remember I used to work at the university, so I had 4.5 of like years having pretty much the best job ever as an ambassador for OU Southern. So I was pretty happy with that. And then, you know, graduate, not really have a way to get a job initially, and have a lot of struggles coming up with an education job, teaching in an elementary school. And after a few tries at other jobs, substitute teaching, which
Mm-hmm.
I am cool with, lifeguarding, which I still am doing.
Nice,
Have
nice.
my
Thank you
guard
for
shirt on right now. When I
that.
when I get off of work early, take
That's
over some
cool. I
of the
did not know you
trades.
were a lifeguard. So see, this is educating me. I love your word transitioning. Uh, that transition from point to point of our lives where things hold and some things are in flux. They change.
Yeah,
That's really interesting, though. I mean, I know it might not be the happiest. I mean, whenever we've had transitions, I've wondered about this because I've been in transitions too. They always they do two things, and I wonder if this has been your experience too. So when we're transitioning, I don't like it. That's one thing. I don't
no,
like it.
it sucks.
Yeah, yeah. I don't like it, but it always winds up teaching me something. And that is really interesting, isn't it? It's the and I wouldn't be the person I am without the transition, which actually turns into an opportunity. And then at the end of the day, I've never seen one transition, though I hated it, as you say, we don't like it at all. But then when we transition, it's teaching us something. And then finally, it winds up becoming something that I think is very interesting and rich and brings to us whole new experiences. And that's interesting for me because I learned to love the transition, but that's after the fact,
Yeah.
that's not in the middle of the transition. If you ask me in the middle of the transition, I hate it. I mean, I'm not liking this at all. And if you come to me with a platitude and say, well, you're going to learn from this, well, I don't want to learn from anything from this transition.
Yeah, and I feel like the one that I think a lot of people share is in the past 2 years is really because this is a time of transition. It's a massive one, not just interpersonally, but also just extra personally. All the country, everybody's experiencing it at the same time. Is like trying to take the things that you personally find to be the normal you, start those back up again, and then falling flat on your face and just not being able to do those things. Like I can't tell you how many times I've started and stopped running, actually trying to get back into running. It's rough.
Yes, it is. But that was part of you, and so you're trying to bring that back.
Yeah.
But yet but what I'm finding interesting as we're talking here and as we're dialoguing about this transition thing, there is a part of us that remains the same, do you think? You think that there's like that essence of you is still the same?
I think, I mean, there has to be, in order to be able to look at something and notice that there is a tumultuous time, that there's a
Mhm.
transition, you have to have a reference point. So I think we latch on to that previous self as much as we possibly can. We look through that lens as much as we
Mhm.
can until we kind of finally, lens is kind of a weird thing because it makes it sound like we're looking through a new lens, but we kind of have a lot of different ones, don't we?
Mhm.
That we
I
look
like
at
that. Explore
through
that.
our past
Explore that a
lives.
bit. That's a great thought. Um, teach teach me something on that because that's interesting. I like that thought about the different lenses.
Yeah. Or, like kind of different frames that you have to look through life, the different pictures of what your life is and your different eras.
Mhm. It's fascinating how we look at things differently. I mean, like there's that old thought that we are different things to different people, like the different roles we play. I know that like I have friends that, and well, we all do. It's not just me who has friends who understand, who know me, who know
I think
me.
we all have friends.
Yeah, yeah, we all have friends. Thankfully, and blessings that we all have friends which carry us through. But the people that know us, who cherish us, no matter what point we are in the transition, no matter what we're transitioning into, no matter the circumstances of life, they still embrace us because they love us, they understand us, they um appreciate us no matter what role we are playing. So it's like that. It's like Emerson said one time, Ralph Waldo Emerson said that a friend was a person, and this could be any loved one, because our loved ones are our friends as well. But they are people that we can be at our very worst, and they still love us and cherish us. And I love that. I mean, you can be down on your luck, down on your blessing, I call it, or down on the transition. Like the bottom has come out of me. Like it is wound up nowhere. Yet they still embrace me. They still love me, and they will still encourage me, and they always come about the best of the best of the times will always tell you, if they're honest with you, that this will be a time of learning and you'll be better off for it. And like we've been talking about, I hate that lesson. I hate the time that I'm given that lesson, but I know that that's going to bring me around to who I need to be. That's really interesting, isn't it? It's like transitions. I know we studied Heraclitus. Do you remember Heraclitus, don't you? About the philosopher of flux. You remember that constant change in the
Yeah.
universe? Yeah. That's what I was thinking about when you're talking about transitions. It's a fascinating idea. Um,
Yeah. I think a framework that I don't remember where I had heard of it. Maybe it was in philosophy, or maybe it's a psychology concept. It's
Same
kind of
thing
like
then. Same thing.
the it's kind of
Well,
like a
so,
separation of discord and harmony that can exist for people, and it's like a period of years, and I think it's illustrated by a spiral because it's kind of like you can go through like a straight line where you're in that Apollonian harmonious way, and then eventually for everybody it's like that spiral comes around
mhm.
and it's discord, chaos, Dionysus sometimes.
There it is. There it
Some
is.
people might
That's where
like
I was
that.
going with that, man.
Some
I'm
people
so
might
glad
like
you
that.
mentioned this. This is so good. This is so good. Yes, that's perfect philosophy. Thank you for reminding me. Anyway, go back on that, because there might be somebody listening that won't understand our Apollonian and Dionysian elements there. Explain that word Apollonian, where it comes from, what it has to do with, and then go over to the Dionysian.
So Apollonian describes, and I get this from God, who wrote Botany of Desire?
I don't know that.
I read his most recent one. It was Botany of Desire, and then This Is Your Mind on Plants. Really great writer on these, and in Botany of Desire, he wrote a lot about the difference between Dionysian and Apollonian things, because
Well, not to interrupt you on that. Friedrich Nietzsche is the one that made that famous in Twilight of the Idols,
right,
right?
okay,
Because he talks about the Apollonian and the Dionysian tendencies of life, where he was embracing the Dionysian. But I'm interrupting you on that because you were explaining the Apollonian, which comes from, of course, the
oh
Greek
yeah.
the god Apollo. How would you describe? I mean, I know the answer to this, but I want everybody else to come into the dialogue.
I
Uh,
think what the easiest for people would be like pointing out the idea of sobriety, and then you have order, you have expectation and meeting expectations, and then Dionysian is the drunkenness, the chaotic, things out of order, not knowing what to expect.
yeah, the beauty of that, and we might have to hearken to your writer there that you're mentioning,
I
because this
just
is really
remember it's Michael Pollan. Michael Pollan's the guy.
okay. I haven't read any of his work actually, but I can understand the theme of that though. I mean, the
Yeah.
Apollonian being order, being and I liked your illustration of being sobriety, uh, the idea of prudence, the idea of knowledge, order, like a system. Whereas the Dionysian represents the unsystematic, the they'll call it the chaotic, and as you mentioned, the drunkenness, but it's the revelry, and I think they often darken that. They'll darken the Dionysian as if
Right.
it's not important in life,
Yeah.
but actually it's what gives us, I don't know, life itself. Sometimes I
Yeah,
can't
I think
say.
I think an example he actually gave in that book, Botany of Desire, is kind of the difference between the Apollonian would be like big GMO company potato seeds, whereas Dionysian is just natural selection, it's evolution. So in a
Mhm,
lot of ways,
mhm.
it's not a bad thing.
No, no, it represents, in my mind, it keeps on going back to the idea of the wild. Those three themes that I have, or we have, as the part of the as this part of this whole um, outreach ministry, whatever, to bring these philosophical truths, and you focus upon wonder, which is inspiration, wisdom, which is knowledge, education, but then the wild, and that's the passion, that's freedom, that's no boundedness. So if wisdom, and I like that, like tossing back and forth of those, it's almost like we're inspired by wisdom, but sometimes we're inspired by the wild too, the free. It's I like that. I like that a lot. It's that passionate, it's the it's the, I don't know how to put it, but the grappling with life. It's when the, back to our thought, if everything worked out in our lives and we could just write it off, like I go here, go there, and this will turn out for me. Part of the It's almost like if that was that easy of a system, it would lose its meaning. It would almost lose its force, wouldn't it? I mean,
Uh,
you would have never become a lifeguard. right?
True.
You know, you would have
Yeah.
never done, I mean, as you bragged on your t-shirt, which I think that's spot on, to be a lifeguard, you know, that you would have never known that experience had it been just you go to college, you do you know, your relatively speaking 4-year bachelor degree in education, go out, get yourself a job. I was in education too, of course, you know, I was in secondary education. And not to speak freely about myself, I only taught one day in in a high school classroom. One day. I've never been, but this was really odd because where the move now is to bring education to high schools. I'm actually teaching now high school students philosophy, which was interesting turnaround, but I had to trust the transition, I guess, or something like that. I mean, it's always in that hindsight. You think of, well, I'm wondering if these transitions are actually opportunities. What are you thinking about that?
Yeah, I think, especially if you're open-minded to it, and
Yeah.
it can be really hard in the past couple of years, and just like now taking a step back to like slow down and think about what's actually happening to me. But um
Are you coming back around to appreciate this? And I hope that nobody listening to our conversation thinks that I am downplaying transitions like whenever change happens in life, that's the short transition is a great word, but it's just simply change. It's change. We're changing,
yeah,
but we're holding on to something which is true about ourselves throughout, but that change is really rough. And I appreciate you pointing that out. Have you learned to, when you say that you're slowing down, because I think this helps a lot of people, because a lot of people are they're in change. You know, that was Heraclitus's great idea back to him, that he thought of that flux and that change as being necessary for anything to grow, to live, to move. It's part of the Dionysian, you know, it's like the unsystematic. It doesn't work out like that. And
yeah,
it hits you hard. And I'm not trying to play that down, but there's something about there's something really rich in that. And the reason I'm pulling from my thoughts is because I don't like it either. And I've come to grapple with it,
yeah,
just to be honest, because it's changed up. If you had asked me 20 years ago, you know, when I was, you know, doing all of my education and getting that all worked out, I had it all worked out in my mind, but it didn't work out that way. And that's odd, isn't it?
right.
But they're like opportunities. I like how you said that you're embracing that now. Uh, Talk a little bit on what you've learned to embrace, maybe.
I think it's just the things that I know are going to, like I said, satisfy me. So I would say, so I'll give like a real life example in terms of like what I planned on doing. Planned on teaching in the US for a few years, moving to teach at an international school for a couple of years. And then my big dream was to like live in Hawaii for a couple of years, to spend my last couple of years doing elementary before going to secondary education.
Okay.
And
Okay.
one of my big goals was like, I'm going to go to Hawaii. I'm going to learn to surf. I'm going to do it all the time. And I'm going to surf Jaws, one of the big mega wave beaches, like 60, 70-foot waves, at least once. That was like always my thing.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple months ago, I kind of came to the idea of like, well, where I'm at right now, also where I'm at with Anna, being in a relationship and having pets, you can't really consider things like, oh, I can just move 12, like 20-hour flight away from where I'm at right now it's going to be hard to just like move to Hawaii. It's like, am I going to keep cats in a plane for the entire time just to be able to move there? So I've kind of realized like, okay, my range is slowed down. Things like surfing aren't really an option. What do I have in front of me? I have the fact that I skateboard and I know how to snowboard, and nothing's stopping me from doing those things.
Yes.
So I realize consciously I can lean into those things. Those things satisfy me and they make me happy. So it's not the end of the world that I don't have my plan all together. I have something in front of me that I should appreciate and actually like take the time to start doing more often.
That's lovely. That's
And
lovely.
just one of, many other branching chains that come along with, the whole transition
I think
factor.
that's a beautiful thought, because it's that idea of the moment. It's the idea of that reality that is right standing here before me. This person who loves me, this situation that I'm living through with them, um, the life that we are building together. And yes, it may be that I can't just simply move to Hawaii and become sort of a part-time surfer and teacher.
It's not the end of the world. I mean, teachers get paid
Eh,
nothing in Hawaii anyway, so
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like
So you're thinking, you're looking at that, and then as you're saying, but I can do all of these other things that satisfy my heart, that is that are right now in this moment, that I'm making memories with. And who's to say that maybe one day you and all of the cats can go down to Hawaii and live there for a time. It doesn't mean like, because it's not now doesn't mean it won't be ever. It just means not now.
yeah.
And that to me is a really an interesting thought that you're giving us, because a lot of people think, if I can't have it now, then I can't ever have it. It won't ever be. But
Yeah.
yet that's not what wisdom is. Wisdom doesn't work like that. Wisdom sees the long game. It's like about what is the beautiful life for me to lead. That's the reason I've been trying to change the meaning of philosophy. And I want a word that doesn't just simply mean the love of wisdom. I want something to mean the love of the great life, because wisdom is not the end. Wisdom is the tool that gives us that we can look at life better. It's the questioning, it's the deepening of our thoughts, it's the concepts, it's the ideas, it's the history, it's the future, it's whatever. The people that will live, it's the people of the past, what they've said about it, how we glean from that. But they're all searching for the one beautiful life. It's not the one beautiful life, but it is a life, as you said. How did you say it? That satisfies what's going on with me. Is that correct? Is that what you were?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me it is happiness, just being happy with what I'm doing, and then
Mhm.
satisfaction, it is like, feeling sufficient. It's feeling like you've got everything that makes you happy right now, because for me, I think I'm in a comfortable position. I've got the stable job. I can work with that. Now I've got the sufficient. I'm not worrying about where I'm going to work. I'm not worrying about what I'm going to do next. I can start building on that and start thinking about what I can do to become not just sufficient, but also a little bit more. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, what it is to live the great life, as they say.
Mhm. You're still chasing greatness even through those transitions. And that greatness is what we're after. And so the transitions, see, back to them, the changes are enabling and pushing us towards that. It's just that I have never found them easily trustable, because I've thought I've got this all worked out in my mind. I'm Apollo, right? I'm not Dionysus. I don't, I'm not the wild with this. This is the orderly. This is the tame. This is, quote, the civilized. This is
Yeah.
the way you do it, and you do, and you A, B, C, D, E, and then that's it, and then it's over.
Yeah, I think it's funny how like it took a very Dionysian level of thought and introspection for me to come up with the plans that I had to begin with. You know, the ambition to go out internationally, to, live in Hawaii. Just say, yeah, I'm just going to be comfortable for a couple years and go do that before I come back home. And
Yeah.
then you get in that Apollonian mindset where it's like, okay, I'm acting on it. I'm going to keep moving forward. And you need that to move forward. But once
Yeah.
everything kind of unravels, you keep doing it. You keep being Apollonian. And I think for me, it started a transition from being a less inner focused and more outer focused. Like, how
Nice.
can I react to the next thing that's coming at me? Just meet my needs and that be it, because I'm tired, I'm exhausted trying to handle everything all at once and trying to understand where the heck my life is right now.
That's a fascinating idea. I'm loving this. I'm loving the working out of this, the application of these concepts, the real life application that I always want, that I've been calling for, even in my own life and in my own thoughts. Like, I want to know where, how do I need to be working this? How do I need to be seeing this, instead of just like clamping down and getting um, frustrated, miffed at the even very thought of change. Yet seeing that change as this beautiful opportunity to get this moment, it's like unravels the whole thing. Like when you said that the Dionysian was teaching you, or this sense of the wild was having you go to Hawaii. And I was thinking when you said that, and I'm not trying to disagree with this, but I'm wondering if that was more, you had that all worked out and you knew how you were going to do that, and then life just takes
Yeah.
it all apart. Like the wild comes in and says,
Yeah.
like,
It's like
yeah, go on.
it's like I gave up on the wild just at the point that I knew what I wanted to do. I was like, okay, I can turn the order back on. And then the wild was like, wait a second, don't forget about us.
Yeah, yeah,
Don't
yeah,
forget
that's
we're
right.
here.
That's right.
And
Because the
I forgot
wave
they
is
were
still,
there. I
it,
forgot they were there. And it caused me to try and, you know, keep
mhm.
pushing a boulder up a hill.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're the Sisyphus thing, just keep on pushing. You remember that, and it keeps
And
rolling
I
back
wasn't
down.
happy either. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Camus. I wasn't happy.
We find and we leave Sisyphus happy.
Someone could imagine me happy. They could imagine me happy, but me personally, that was not my experience.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But see, it's what you've become, and and you're still learning from this. It's like you've come into your own. I mean, like you said, you've learned to be self-sufficient. You've learned to supply what you need. You've got a family now. I mean, you've got you've got your wonderful relationship. Both of you are building up a life with each other. You reflect upon one another. That's a beautiful way that you have of expressing that. I think that's a great insight to life. I think that's one of the best, most applicable ones I've ever heard, because everybody has to live through it, and everybody has been living through this change and this transition. But everybody so wants what was before, that we forget about the new opportunity that the wild is bringing us. Like you and I both are in education in university, and I've seen I've seen it almost become like we have this great chance to change up how we educate, how, how we're doing education and how people are learning has changed. Yet like everybody's still, there's a, not everybody of course, but a significant number of people want to move that back 20 years and keep it there, and let's just keep it,
Just the normalcy.
yeah. But yet it has transitioned, and now it's wild again, and there's such
Yeah.
great opportunity to become something different, to augment, to change, to look at that opportunity as being something to embrace, not to reject. And I find that to be interesting as a person to embrace that. The what would you offer as the, like, the one line that somebody could hear, that we would want somebody to know? I mean, from your experience as even as an educator, one last question here, but it's probably the most important one. What would you want people to take from your life if they would say, you know, looking at your life, what is that one element of truth that you have to give to them, that they might be feeling bad about life? What would you give them?
I don't think I ever would have had to tell myself this because I've always been the person to do this. I would tell somebody, slow down and reflect for a second. Every once in a while, slow down and reflect for a second. Ever since I learned how to power nap from my track coach in high school, I've been really good at meditating and just letting my mind clear and
Really?
reflecting and slowing down and even just thinking back on my day. And I don't think I've ever had such a lack of that than I have in the past 2 years.
That's really interesting. Let me focus right there, because that's really encouraging. What do you mean by, like, slowing down? What do you do in the meditation?
You know, I really, it's a very body focused, but what I find is the mind really follows. When you really just focus on breathing and slowing your body down, the mind follows with it, whether it's during or after it. So you can just reflect on your day. And this is a practice. This is just, you could even go from the moment you put your shoes on and go to work, think about what you've done, and just continue doing that. Because what happens is you start to do it subconsciously, and then you start to think without fixating a little bit more back and learning from what you've been doing and being able to observe yourself in a much more clear, authentic way.
It's interesting. So drawing down the thought, drawing down your thoughts, slowing down, looking at what's happening in the moment, to give you clarity, to give you a new vision, or to just stop the rampancy of the mind, like this should have worked out, and we're going into meltdown now, man. I don't know,
I
it's
think
just like,
meditation instructors would really call it like acknowledging a thought you have, and acknowledge it, respect it, let it go. And then, once you've been able to do that and thoroughly relax yourself, then you can start to look back a little bit. Once you've cleared out that head a bit. What's funny is the more we try to be Apollonian and create order, the more that our brain starts to get a little Dionysian.
The wild kicks in constantly, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's really interesting that you're bringing that up as that one last truth to give to somebody. It's like encouraging them just to slow down, just stop for a second. And that's what you would teach them. Just wait a second. Would you tell them to look at what they have already, or what would you have them do with that? Once they slow down, what do they focus upon?
I definitely say like looking at what they have already, but at some point I'd also say like, what did you have that you've been missing? Like for me,
Yeah.
skateboarding is something I just completely threw back to the side and took for granted. So I guess to some extent, you have to kind of think about what are the other things in your life that you have also enjoyed in the past and you've kind of let go of because you've, one reason or another, stopped being doing those.
Mm-hmm. They, a part of you or an activity or something you were doing that gave you a sense of yourself. It's almost like it reminds you of who you are because it's so locked into your being.
Yeah,
Maybe I don't know about that. That's interesting. I'm just reflecting upon that because I'm trying to think about that person that might be listening and thinking, right, you're talking about the change. I'm in the middle of the most drastic change of my life. This is a horrendous change. And I can't see any good out of it. I can't see where this is going to wind up. One, teaching me anything or being a blessing in the end. You know, I mean,
yeah,
that's when it really sticks philosophically for me. That's when you really have to say, herein is wisdom.
yeah,
And that's what I long for. That's the great life. That's the life that you say, yes, this has been totally worth it. And that's a real difficult place. Yeah, but I love how you're putting that.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Nick. Thank you for that time. Yeah, I really appreciate you. Appreciate your insight and appreciate your help in thinking about this and focusing upon the Apollonian, the Dionysian, the changes, transitioning. But Nick, thank you for your time, my friend. Thank you. All the
Absolutely.
best.
It was a great talk. It was
Al,
good seeing you again.
and good to see you. Blessings to you and to all of those that you love and all that you're doing in your life. It's been a great time. I'll close this off. It's been the Darren Newman Dialogues. As always, make it beautiful. We'll see you next time.